This is the Biz News Podcast, one-on-one conversations with experts in business and personal development.
A single mother in an adopted country, in debt up to $135,000. Beate Chelette plowed through what she describes as a decade of mistakes to transform her passion for photography into a successful global business and to finally emerge successful and with a bit of Bill Gates' fortune in her bank account. Beate Chelette joins us on this Biz News interview to talk more about how she overcame 10 years of failure by never letting it become personal. Why do you talk about failure, and how did you get to where you are if you failed so much?
This is a very excellent opening question. I think that people have an attachment to a story of failure that goes probably back to their childhood, where there is a educational background, right? So we're being taught something by a teacher of something that already exists. If we can remember it, regurgitate it, we get an A. Somebody tells us we have done this really well. So we grow up in this particular setting to say, well, this is the tried and proven path. But innovation has never happened, Douglas, on the tried and proven path. I mean, certainly not that I remember. It always happens outside of the comfort zone when mistakes are made, when somebody's trying something. And of course, the famous example of Edison, how many times has he failed until he got the right formula? So I believe that failure is a unbelievably important aspect of success and drives innovation, drives your self-esteem, and ultimately drives what you do in fulfillment in life forward. If you don't have a recognition to gauge something against. So how do I know that I'm having a good day unless I've had a bad day? But I only can recognize that I'm doing great if I know that feeling that I had when I wasn't doing so great. So when people try to avoid mistakes, they're basically flatlining through life. And that's why I'm a big advocate for mistakes and failure. And I failed my way to success. And I encourage your audience, Douglas, to do the same.
So when people fail, though, it's so hard to come back because failure isn't necessarily just economics. It's also highly emotional. How did you overcome your failures?
You can't take it personal. I think that's the key to it. If you believe that failure is something you need to be ashamed of, then yes, then failure is very emotional and very difficult. But when you made as many mistakes as I have and had as many failures as I did, but then at the end of it, I had, this unbelievable outcome, then you would ask me, says Beate, was it worth it? Of course, looking back, it was worth it. But most people, when they're going through it, Douglas, don't know that. So because I came out on the other side, I knew that every mistake was necessary because it pushed me to make the decisions that I needed to make to then take this business to the next level and sell it.
Now, what is your favorite failure?
My favorite failure is probably when I had stood in the desert in Los Angeles in the El Mirage dry lake bed. And we were having the first commercial that I produced ever. And so the grip truck was there, the other truck was there, the other truck was there. And I mean, in anybody's book, I would have arrived, like, finally, I'm doing this. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm for some reason, I'm not vibing with this moment. I felt that there was something much bigger, better, that I was destined to do more. And my failure was that I didn't act soon enough on the recognition of that, but I waited so long that my entire business crashed and burned because I waited too long to act up on something that I already knew deep inside.
Now, you don't do that anymore because you have succeeded in a wild manner. You met or have succeeded with somebody who's a household name, Bill, what was it, Gates?
Absolutely, yes, I did. So when my ship after this decade of bad luck came in, it was no other than Bill Gates. I sold my business for millions of dollars to Bill Gates. And I think that it's always great when we are able to tell the story looking back, as I said, then everybody goes like, yeah, yeah, but you know what? You made all the money and you did succeed and you did sell your business and you sold it to Bill Gates. I cannot compare myself to you. I'm like, well, how do you think I got there? I mean, do you think this is the story of the princess that I woke up a princess one day? People were handing me gifts and then somebody said, would you like to be the queen? And then I said yes, and they gave me the crown. No, the story's never like that.
No, it probably isn't, but it begs the question, why are you back doing business now and not on a sunny beach in Tahiti?
You know, you're not the first one to ask me this. And I think, Douglas, it all comes down to what are you passionate about or what is your vision for yourself in life? And I remember when I was going through these 10 years of just brutal adversity, that I was thinking to myself, this is not possible that this is everything there is for me. I remember that after I sold my business and I sit there and I open my laptop and I look at this number in my brokerage account. I couldn't believe it's a big number. And then I went shopping to like Neiman Marcus and I go in there, I grab a t-shirt. It's $200 for t-shirt. And then my daughter picks up a little Burberry coat and I said, how much is that? She says, that $2,500. And I said, I never spent $200 on a t-shirt then. And I don't think I'm going to spend $200 on a t-shirt now, because that's just not what gives me joy in life. What gives me joy in life is to share information, to help other people to grow their authority, to help other people make their impact, to help them build business systems, to have them build their signature growth system, to help them figure out how they're going to get this strategy in place so they can grow their business, they can grow personally, they can have a value proposition for their brand, for themselves, so they can go out and become the best version that they can envision for themselves. That's what lights me up. And so my retirement lasted, I think, a week.
Well, a week in Los Angeles and retired can be a long time for many people.
Truer words have never been spoken. Yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
All of our listeners and viewers who are familiar with the 405 and you're trying to get to the airport
Oh,
are
God.
will
God
relate to
help you.
that. Yes,
Hmm.
exactly. You probably need one of those flying cars. Uh, Unfortunately, they've all been rented. You have put a lot of your ideas into a book. Tell us about that.
Yes. So I wrote a book called Happy Woman, Happy World. And that specifically, Douglas, was that I felt that especially women in leadership or women who want to be in leadership or working moms have such a hard time in a society that is built on a code that was built by men for men. And so we are in, very much like I gave the example earlier of this educational system. That's just the way it is. That's just the way it's been built. That's just the way it's been always done. And so our business systems or our structures in systems, specifically in government or in the more established institutions, are all built on old principles that men have developed with the best knowledge that they had at the time. Now, these systems don't, for the most part, work for women. Frankly, they don't work for most men either anymore because it's an old, outdated business code. So I wanted to give people some insights into how do you step into leadership for yourself? How do you break the old code, which is why I call it the women's code? How do you break this old pattern, this old code, and start to think about this from a perspective, who do I want to be? What control do I have? And the only control you ever have is over yourself, the decisions that you make and the choices that move you forward and the deliberate, consistent path you go.
Sometimes it's very, very hard for anybody to follow advice for people who are stumbling along those paths and thinking about giving up?
Yeah, well, that's because again, it's the attachment to the story. If I think about my ex-husband, we just had this conversation. My daughter had a baby shower, and her brother was there, and he is in this complete victim mode. I mean, we've been divorced almost 30 years, and he still talks about that I ruined his life. And I'm thinking, like, dude, if 30 years later, I haven't even been in your life, you still take that as an excuse to suck in life now. I'm sorry, that's on you. So I think that sometimes people just don't want to do the work because it's easier to say, Douglas did that, Beate did that, John did that to me, instead of saying, what's the lesson here from me? What am I learning from this? Where's the opportunity that's hidden in this for me to break out of this pattern and get into the next? And that's why so many people just keep looping and looping and looping and looping, and then they retire and die.
And a
That
less than happy life they had, I'm afraid.
Well, that's kind of why we're doing this podcast, right, Douglas? Is to help them with this idea of you gotta get your gig together here and say, is this all you think there is for you? Are you happy with this? What do you have influence over? Who can you influence? Is this a stick it to someone mentality? Or is this a hey, I'm here. I may as well make the best out of it. I'm going to become an admired leader. I'm going to take charge. I'm going to make the changes. I'm going to push. I'm going to get people excited. I mean, it's entirely up to you. And I think you can do this in any job, anywhere.
And you're just not saying this theoretically, you are offering this to the public. Would you tell our listeners and viewers a little bit about what you are offering?
Yes. So I do a lot of work with people that are entrepreneurs, business owners that want to grow their business or create their signature growth system. So I help people to really figure out what makes them unique. I also have a program called the Unapologetic Value Proposition, where you can go and figure out what makes you so different. Like, what is different about you? Why would anybody even listen to you? How do you tell people what are you good at without sounding like an arrogant prick? So, so if any of this resonates, I do encourage you to reach out and schedule a complimentary 15-minute uncovery session. Just go to uncoverysession.com. Or if you are looking for the first step in business, then take our quiz, the Growth Blocker Quiz. Go to growthblockerquiz.com and figure out what your number one business growth blocker is.
We have covered a lot of topics, and I'm afraid we almost did too much on negativity. What would you like to add that we have not talked about?
I think that, just to maybe give a little bit more background on an attitude shift or a reframe attitude on how to manage when stuff goes wrong. So I see a lot of people when something goes wrong, they throw temper tantrums, they want to give up. Some people become depressed, they want to run away, they want to quit. So I want you to think about that you are going to your car and the GPS has been asking you to update it for quite some time. However, you have consistently ignored it because you're always so very busy. Now you go the regular way, and suddenly there's construction. They're building the freeway. It's a cul-de-sac. The guy stands there with his stop sign. He's pointing at it. He's shrugging his shoulder. What are you going to do? You're going to get out of the car? You're going to throw yourself on the ground? Are you going to go like, I'm never going to drive again. This is the worst thing that's ever happened to me in my entire life. I'm going to give up. I'm going to run away. I'm going to move to another country. That's it. No more cars for me. You're not going to do any of that. You're just going to go, you wave at the guy, you go, yeah, well, my destination obviously is still there. I mean, I know my friend's house, this just because I can't go this way doesn't mean that the house has been torn down. So you go, I need to find another way. So when stuff in life happens, I want you to literally visualize this woman or man in their, in their hazard suit, with the neon green and the reflective stripe and the hard hat with a stop sign, ever so gently reminding you this is not the way. And all I want you to do is wave, say thank you, and find another way.
You've been watching the Biz News Podcast. We welcome your input. Send your email to editor@biznews.com. Thanks for watching.